What's in this box is the latest in what is going to make my life much easier here at Changing Latitudes. Stick with us. So one of the challenges of putting up a fence on the property as well as running a creek is what do you do when the grass grows up underneath the fence and trim underneath it? Do you walk around with a hand trimmer, a weed eater, go ahead with a DR and work your way through each one of the posts, or work your way along the creek? I've done all that. So I've been researching how I can make that a little bit more efficient and possibly tie it into some sort of motorized, whether it be the tractor or an ATV. So I've decided to go with this DR trimmer that sticks out about 3 to 4 feet off the edge of the ATV, drag it along the creek, drag it through the fence. It has a spring that goes around the fence space. So what I'm going to do today is go through putting this thing together and also demonstrating how it works in the field and give you a bit of a live review of what I think the product does. So stick with me on this and let's start into this box. So what do we have here? The DR Pro tow behind trimmer, the Pro XLT. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and follow the directions on how to assemble. So I'm going to need a 9/16 wrench and 2 3 1/4 wrenches. So let's go ahead and get that right now. All right, so okay, with the spring on the tow bar, I'm going to go ahead now and put on the caster, and it looks like all you need to really do is slip it through, get a couple of these collars on there, and go from there. Okay, they've given you a multitude of spacers here to either decide if you want to put them on the top or the bottom from the ground, how high you want this back wheel to travel, from what I can tell. I'm going to go ahead for now and put it on the top because I do want to trim as low as I can to the ground at this time. We'll see if time goes on if I need to make an adjustment. This doesn't ship with oil, so you definitely have to fill it up. It says 17 ounces. Oil's in. So I have the DR push trimmer. So I know how to work with the cords. I'm going to go ahead and place these some of these cords in here. It works really slick. Now you want these guys, the blue ones. I found these other ones, this all came with the equipment. I found the blue ones to be the most durable, the greens and all the other ones not so much. So I'm going to go ahead with these because obviously I got some thick grass out there I need to chop up. So the good news is when you're putting these in, they don't go back out, right? They pull out. You have to pull them through. Now, this thing has the guard here, and it's supposed to keep you from whacking on whatever you don't want to whack on. Obviously, when it comes to the creek, it's not going to be a problem. I'm going to go ahead and give it just a tint more in, maybe like that much, because they do spin out sometimes, but for the most part, they do not. So there is the wider side, and then there's a shallower side that comes out. So when you go to put them in, you put them in through the wide side, and you can only put it one way. It won't go the other way. See, I'm pulling on it. It won't go the other way. So some neat technology there that somebody came up with. Okay, now it's time to hook it up to the ATV. Getting pretty exciting. So I've taken it out for a test run, and two things definitely are clear. You have been given these spacers to make sure that you have the height of this wheel correctly set. Now, most folks in the field, it's not level. It's going to bounce up and down. So if I take my initial assessment, which is only after about an hour's worth of working with the tool, I would say that you would want more wheel down, and then there's a second adjustment to make right there next to where the strings are being whipped around, the cords, if you will. So first thing I'm going to do is adjust this. Now, unfortunately, I've already greased this, so it's going to get a little sticky, but it's a field tool. So let's make that adjustment first. I'm going to put another two of these guys down to these spacers, and then I'm going to come back over here and adjust the other piece that I just discussed about. Yeah, it's comedy to think that using a tool like this could ever be such that it doesn't do this the entire time. You have to take into consideration the field. And unless you're running a real plush golf course, or should I say a putting green on a golf course, that's what's going to happen. So this thing's designed to bounce back and forth. You're towing it. You're not going to see exactly what you're doing all the time because you got to obviously look forward as well. And my test area around the reservoir was a little difficult because there's rock. I've got to watch out for my trees. Got to watch out for several things to try to get this done. So I felt myself not really hitting exactly what I was looking for there. I'll get better with time. Okay, I have myself propped it up with just a piece of wood here. So I was hitting a rock, and it looks like it's carved it down. Unfortunately, sanded it down. So first one out, man, took a real beating. But with that, I'm just going to go ahead and take these guys out, which is just pushing them through the hole the same direction you put them in, because obviously it's not designed to go the opposite direction. So I'm just going to pull those out one by one. And this is where it's helpful if you put them past a ½ inch so that you can grab them. Otherwise, you're going to need a needle nose to get them pulled out. So before I go ahead and put in the next one, I am going to take this spacer, which is what this is, and I'm going to put it at the top and bring the cord down. Because as I just described, I'm putting the wheel down further. So if I continue with this height, I'm going to have about 8 inches, 6 to 8 inches of actual material or grass out there. And I really like to get it a little tighter. So I'm going to go ahead and drop it back down that 2 inches. Okay, with it off now, I'm just going to simply switch the spacer to the top versus putting it on the bottom. You gotta line up your key. Line up the key on this. And put this guy back into here. And get your screw lined up. Okay, that switched out the spacer. Like I said, it brings my cord down closer to the ground, which is what I'm looking for since I raised the wheel. Let's go ahead and put some new cords in. About a 1/2 inch out. Okay, I finally made it down here to the creek. And as you can see, this run all the way down needs a good trim job. So this is what this tool is for, that and the fact that the fence in the future state needs me to work underneath the fence, so that's why I purchased the DR tow behind mower. So first run down here, sometimes it gets a little bit, as I've noticed, it gets a little bit like wonky as you're trying to learn how to drive with it behind you, particularly if you're trying to work off a quasi straight line in the edge of the creek. If you're just trying to work underneath the fence, I can imagine you set the fence right over the middle of that and you just roll underneath. Here I don't have anything to guide me. I just got an edge of it. Try not to fall into the creek with the ATV and do your best with a cleanup. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and proceed. We'll see how it goes. Okay, I think one of the things that you have to keep in mind here is that you're going to, obviously there's a learning curve, but also when you have this edge, obviously there's only a 17-inch width if you're at full capacity. And if that's the case, you know, and you're trying to cut to more than 17 inches, you're gonna have to come by a couple times, which is not a problem. We're learning here. Still a lot faster than having to do this all by DR. Now I am expecting to have to come back, and if I really want to tidy, I'm going to have to come back through with my weed eater. Well, cool. I've actually done 3 passes, and it's just, again, it's just a little bit of learning how the distance works. You can swing the arm out further, get that thing to kind of be that much further away from the vehicle. Not a terribly bad idea when you have room to do it, because then you'll be able to see out of your peripheral a little bit better when you're towing. You can look back just maybe a quarter turn. I had to really crank to see where this was. Also, too, you can see it does a nice job. It cleared out everything really nice along the creek. You can see the opposite side of the creek there. That was the original height. Now it's, you know, pretty well trimmed up. You got a couple extra stragglers because obviously those are falling into the creek. I was expecting to use the weed whacker as trying to tidy up, and I was expecting it anyway because I have to do the places where this can't go anyway. So I'll either use their other DR manual machine and hit it, or I'll just come by with the weed whacker and hit it that way. So hey, I think overall the product looks pretty good for me and working for me. I will say one thing. So I believe that I overfilled my gas just a bit the other day. And in doing so, I think what you have to do is give yourself about a 3/4 tank gas, because something happened that I just realized when I was having trouble starting it. So because this doesn't have a primer or anything, fuel's all built up in here, and it's getting the air filter wet. That air filter being wet obviously clogs it, can't take in the air when you're starting it up. So that became a problem that I just recognized. And I called DR, and I can't say that I had a favorable experience with the technician. Didn't ask that question, didn't ask if I overfilled, didn't ask if there was any issues with that. But I remember when I was filling it up, I had it looked like I had more room, so I gave it a little bit, and of course those government issued cans, split out right out, and I had it all over the place. Once it dried out a couple nights ago, it worked great. And then today I went to go start it up, and it killed out on me again in a very frustrating way. And I just happened to take the air off, and just gas was just dropping out of it, just dripping. So when I took the air filter off, pulled the cord, boom, it started. So I can only assume that we had a problem that I had created. But I'm going to go ahead and do the other side now, and I'll give you my thoughts at the end. Well, cleaned it up nicely. I think, I took 4 passes through it. Of course, some of this is just figuring out where to guide yourself, as I said before. Going to get better with it. Probably going to have to bring the tractor in closer to the creek as well if I don't want to go 25 laps through here and clean it up. I'm also going to have to take the weed whacker through. This is a lot higher than I normally let it get to, and the reason for that was simply as I was waiting for this tool. So I didn't want to come out here and hand drive it. It is a bear to do it manually. This creek runs, for the piece that we actually work on, it runs about 700 linear feet. So when you got 700 linear feet, you don't want to be in the business of having to do this by hand. And I do like it trimmed down. Now, of course, the debris field inside the creeks, but we'll get that taken care of. Anyway, I think overall I'm happy with the product. Again, I called their customer service for why it wasn't starting. It was disappointing. The answer was really kind of rebuild your carburetor or send it back to the people who you bought it from. Not really the answer I was looking for. And it ended up being something simple. So with that, I think, overall, I think the product's doing exactly what I'm looking for it to do. Now, I have not tested it on a fence system, which is exactly what this tool was purchased for, this and the creek. So, we'll see. I haven't had that step yet. I'm not done with the fence. So I've got to get that fence built before I can actually give a story that I'll refer out to y'all. The one thing that's interesting about the fence is I don't know how much this here is going to mar the bottom of it. So I've got a concept that I'm working on where a piece of metal will come up from the bottom and protect the bottom of the fence. It may well be that you just simply have to take the spacers and drop it down, so that and then switch the routine here, raise your spacer and put that up on the bottom and bring that cutter up high, so that when it cuts into the ground or cuts near the ground, it's not cutting or burning the grass, but at the same time is bringing that piece of metal and rubbing up against the piece that I've got in place to protect the post. So with that, that's the end of this video. Thank you for watching all the way through. Talk to you soon.